Hi, I'm Gracie Manchin, Senior Specialist at ArtNet Auctions for Contemporary and Modern Art. And I'm very excited to be here today with Tim Rollins and two original members of K.O.S. to preview their show on the origin after Darwin here at Lehmann Maupin Gallery. Tim, talk a little bit about this particular series, when it started, and the iconography, the Tree of Life, that's reproduced here.
We began investigating Darwin's great text on the origin of species around 1995, believe it or not. And what a lot of folk don't understand is the educational process that goes into the making of the work resounds in the final product. We were very, very attracted to Darwin's very original drawing, in which it just kind of came out. And he did the Tree of Life. It's a very simple drawing. And then he wrote beautifully, I think. And that was the genesis of his theory that changed and revolutionized culture, science, I would say spirituality. And we were always fascinated by the fact that he would also draw on pieces of paper that he would have his little son use the backsides of, because he could hardly afford paper. So the kid would do his own drawings of knights and strange, amazing, fantastic creatures. And so it was that interplay between, this genius and then this childlike innocence and wild imagination on two sides of the same sheet of paper. It's like a metaphor for form and content. Form and content are separate, but they're wedded. They're like two sides of the same sheet of paper. And as always, when K.O.S. and I get together in the room, it is like almost like a seance, where we come, we read Darwin together, we discuss it, and the ghost starts floating in and whispering in our ear and actually telling us what to do and what to make. And frankly, it sounds a little crazy, but for all its science, it's something supernaturally powerful about the images that we conjured up in these works.
So how many images did you, I know that when you get together and, you start reading from the text and, thinking, I think you take particular parts of the text that have particular meaning, and then people start drawing pictures and coming up with ideas. And then it finally comes down to exactly, what you pick to be put on the pages of the book.
Right. This isn't a, boring school assignment where you read pages 1 to 10 and then there's a pop quiz at the end. We don't do that. No, we go in there to be inspired. I'm from New England, I'm from Maine, and the New England pragmatists are in my DNA, and I always refer to a great text by Emerson saying that books should not be read, they should be used.
Literally.
Literally used. Well, we took it to that level, right, Angel? Right, Rick? And we took it to that level. And yet, books should be used to inspire you to live its message in your daily life. Beautiful. And so we did that literally when we decided to take on the transgressive act, but also it's almost an act of adoration to have this conversation with the greats of history, particularly when you do that in the poorest, so-called poorest congressional district in the United States, the South Bronx. But these texts are for us. They are for us. They are not, God bless them, graduate students at Harvard or SVA or wherever I teach, but they are for us. The great W.E.B. Du Bois says, I sit beside Shakespeare, and he winces not. And these are ours. There's an old Baptist song, which I love, as I went to the enemy's camp, and I took back what they stole from me. And so what we do is we, in a funny way, raid in a beautiful, respectful way, high culture that supposedly we're not supposed to have anything to do with. And the results of that transgression is what you see on the walls here today.
Well, and reading about you, it talked about how when you first went to the South Bronx, which is now like a long time ago, that was 1981, I think, when you were...
I was there in 1980, and I became a full-time public school art teacher for the special ed department at Intermediate School 52 on Kelly Street.
And...
when Angel was 11 and Rick was 13.
And you know, your purpose always was to educate in addition to doing art. You know, I had read this incredible story about how, you know, you wanted to incorporate the reading of the books to the students and have them react to them. And one of the first things you did was to bring in this first edition of 1984. And tell me what happened.
What happened was at this point I was... all my kids supposedly were special ed, so they had labels on them, like they were dyslexic, emotionally handicapped. My favorite is educatable, mentally retarded. It's unbelievable. My favorite, ADD, attention deficit disorder. Right? Kids that can play video games for 8 hours straight without going to the bathroom, and they have attention deficit disorder. They did not have that. They had TDD, teacher deficit disorder. So, yeah, what the issue was is that I thought it was, in a funny way, immoral to teach kids how to paint when at the age of 11 they did not know how to spell the word paint. It was shocking, and it wasn't going to go down in my classroom. And so what I decided to do is to read aloud classics. Because the kids were living actually a classic life. There was tragedy, there was comedy, they could relate to the greats. And I thought, wow, if there's any way we could have a conversation with history, this is how it would happen. And one of my kids, I brought in a beautiful first edition of 1984 by George Orwell. There's something about the material of the book, the feel of the book, which was totally absent from their lives. And I thought, yeah, look at this, isn't it great? And I started reading, and the kids started drawing in the book, on the pages. And I wanted to kill him. But then, revelation. And I'd come to New York to study with Joseph Kassouf, and I knew people like Hannah Darboven and Sola Witt, all these amazingly great, brainy conceptualists. And there was something, this amazing direct imprint on the text, on the page, that moved me and inspired me, and we said, let's start taking books apart and painting on them.
That's amazing, since you worked at the library at SVA, and then you went to work, you came to SVA because you read something about Joseph Kassouf, and you said, I want to study with this person. So you moved to New York, pulled it together, moved to New York. Not only did you study with him, but then he ended up hiring you, and you were working on his library. So here's somebody with this love of books, who's all of a sudden now ripping those books apart.
Yeah, I used to make a living putting books back together because I was repairing books at School of Visual Arts Library, and now I make a living tearing them apart, but in a glorious way.
The reason all of our series takes so long to develop is because we have a certain amount of respect for either the musical score that we're using or whatever piece of literature that we're working on. And so, because of the seance that Tim talks about that we have in the studio at all times, it's almost like making a sauce. It's a reduction. And we're just reducing until we get to that aha moment. And it's extremely important that we keep that level of respect up and the quality up. And so this is why it's not so simple just to say, we're not necessarily ripping it apart, but we're transforming it and giving it our own twist to it as well. And it's all part of that our didactic ethos that we have, which is really the most important part of the process. Is we're teaching ourselves, we're teaching in workshops, we're teaching some of the younger kids, and that's all part of the process. It's all part of our process.
I think collectively we really discovered after 30 years that art making is about getting to essence.
Mm-hmm. It's a great process, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I actually met Tim at IS 52. He was my art teacher there, and I avoided going to 52 for years. It was a school that I was supposed to go to, and I ended up going to one of the first charter schools in the Bronx. I took 2 buses to avoid going to 52 at 9 and 10. And my parents let me do that miraculously. And first day I got into the classroom with Tim, there was literally a hush when we walked in. I mean, 52 was definitely it was a crazy place. But it was very evident from the moment that I walked into this classroom that Tim demanded a certain amount of respect, but that's because he also respected his students. And by doing that, it's not just, hey, you guys can do whatever you want. It's about raising the level. And I mean, the very first day, he actually gave us our midterm test. It was an art history test, and he said, it was a multiple choice test, and it had stuff like, out of these 4, who's not a Cubist? What year was the Surrealist Manifesto written? Here we are. 11-year-olds, we have no idea what he was talking about. But it's indicative of how the studio operates as well, and how we've continued that process. And so what Tim said after we took the test was, hey, this is the same exact test that I will give you at the midterm. And I guarantee you that you all get this. Yes. At that moment I thought, wow, this is amazing. And at 52, this was meant to be for me.
And now how many years is it for you?
28 years now.
28
years.
So on this group of paintings that's here, how many of K.O.S. actually worked on these? You said it's a long period of time that these developed over, so I guess it's hard to say how many worked because there were the conception period.
Because it's also a level of involvement that is hard to discern because, for example, Benjamin Volta, who's been working with us for years, he lives in Philadelphia, he was instrumental in doing the research. Ala Ebdekar, who is in teaching at Stanford now. Hello.
Love this.
Yeah, and so that was part of it. And then so it is this giant, wonderful community. And it is fascinating now because of the miracle of the web. That we have a virtual atelier that everyone doesn't have to be in one little room, like those old days on Longwood Avenue in that little studio that we have and we would go to after school every day. So it is about an intellectual involvement, emotional involvement, spiritual involvement, physical involvement. We were all here yesterday, putting these things up. So it's very clean, organic democracy where everybody has their own skills. And then everyone brings something to the table. It's like Thanksgiving dinner every freaking day. And that's what keeps me excited and going after 30 years of work.
I mean,
and we just begun.
You never know what to expect, right? When you walk into the studio.
No, it's like a telenovela. It's like a soap opera.
Also, for example, a couple of years ago, we were making an America series work. And Angel was still living in Seattle, and some of the other members were outside of New York City. But because of the power of the internet, we emailed people, send us your images, and we'll put them on the painting. And everyone sent us, from San Francisco to Memphis to Seattle, Washington, and they're still there. They were in the studio.
It's science fiction become real, and you see the results here.
Can you obviously these are 2 success stories, but can you tell me about some other ones? I mean, what you started with were kids that you said that they were terming, with the term special education or special students. And now, from what I hear, they're in college. Some are in college, some are...
Carlos is a cop, which is mind-blowing, right? Because he knows the other side really well. So that kind of makes sense completely. And I'll be honest, I love all my folk that I've worked with, and I guess it's all successful, even the ones that were murdered.
Yeah, I heard that there was 1993 was a little hard year for you.
It was my annus horribilis, yes, for everybody. But I'll be honest, and I talk about this in my lectures all the time, is that the glory of this project did not make itself manifest until that time, when Christopher Hernandez was murdered. And I kind of thought, I don't know if I can do this. I didn't sign up for this. And all that, Mr. Rogers working with kids and, all that Sesame Street junk was, I don't know, this is not particularly real. And what changed my life and my attitude, right, Rick, is when the last painting that Chris worked on was based on From the Earth to the Moon by Jules Verne. And we got a call a couple of years after his murder, and I got a call from the curators at the Hirshhorn Museum who had acquired it, and they said, listen, we're going to show work from the permanent collection, and you're going to be here. K.O.S. is going to be featured. They have an America painting. They said, no, we're showing From the Earth to the Moon. Do you want to come see it? And I wasn't sure. You get through this, but you don't get over it. And it was Rick. And Rick said, I'm going. And George, your brother, Angel's brother, said, he's Chris's best friend, I want to go.
So we had to go.
We had
to go. It was we were going back to see Chris because he had left something behind, a voice, a spirit, and it was just a moving.
It affects
moment.
me now. Yeah. I mean, and we went, and I will never forget it. And I go, where is the work? It's downstairs, and over here is a Dan Flavin Monument to Talent. All right, and over there is Kiefer, and then Philip Yustin, right? And then Leonardo Drew was what we adore, and there was the work. And basically we sat on a bench, and we wept. And the guards were like, what's going on? And someone whispered in their ear, let them have a moment. But it wasn't because we were sad, because he was so there. And isn't that the beauty of what we do? We're there. Kids of Survival was kind of a cute name we came up with in 1981-82, just to have a moniker. It was at that moment that I really realized what art is all about. It is a means to survive. And to have a voice, and have a presence, have a physical manifestation of your existence in a very strange universe.
Well, you've had such a commitment to, working in a collaborative process. It's starting with, when you were at SVA, you put together a group of students, right? And
yeah,
then
at 383, we terrorized the school. Yeah. And I just got through teaching it. I'm now like the senior professor, which is hilarious.
And then group material.
Group material on East 13th Street. Yes, in 1979, 1980. And we made history there too.
So what was it in your, growing up in Maine or whatever? I mean, when did this hit you? That this was, for you, this was how it was important for you to continue to work in a collaborative way?
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, most artists' idea of heaven is being alone at least 6 hours in the studio making their own work. Am I right about it? And then that's good. And that's my idea of heaven.
And that's what I do with me.
Yeah, I came to New York for a reason. I mean, God bless Maine. I love it. And it's in my DNA, as I said. But, the diversity, the energy, the power. And also, I think we keep saying it's a dress rehearsal for a wonderful society. Our little day. Someone that looks like me, being with young folk that look like you and you. In a place that looks like the South Bronx. It wasn't supposed to happen. And trust me, we have our share of haters. But our haters are so wonderful because they inspire us to keep going and doing better and showing that y'all are wrong. That's all there's to it. And so, if this is possible in the United States, in this year, over 30 years, and we still love each other, right?
Most of the time.
Just check. And then there's something, I think, optimistic in it.
So how many members now? Current?
Oh, God. Well, what you do, I mean, the people that actually work, it changes every year. There's some kids that, like, we got Logan, he's 18. He's got his first year at SVA. You stay in school, but keeps beating on the door to come on in. So, but basically, it's always been around. I don't want to be too like Jesus complex, but it's like
10 to 12.
Yeah, 10 to 12 that are really. I gotta watch that. So it's like 10 to 12 that are really in there.
But the core group is probably around 4 to 5.
Oh, so it's really small.
So who are really there?
Well, we're there
every other
every day, and on a day-to-day basis, like Tim said, there are guys like Ben Volta who found in Philadelphia. It's not possible for them to be physically involved in every single project that we do. But the biggest thing in how we've changed as a group is the fact that we do these workshops, national and international. So it always, inevitably, we always have one or two from these workshops that we stay in touch with. And in their way, they also contribute to the group as well. So it's not, again, Tim touched on this earlier, it's not, you don't necessarily have to be physically there at the studio to be involved in what we do. So,
the works on paper here are made with a group of 18 kids, teenagers from Edinburgh. And we actually made it at we made it at the Talbot Rice Gallery, 30 feet from Darwin's study.
yes.
He was it. And then the Du Bois piece is made with kids right outside of Amherst, right? And that's made with what? We have 18 kids, and they were like 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. So what we're able to do now is to work at doing workshops. We're going to Savannah 2 weeks from now. We're going to be working with kids there. And what we are going to do is we're also planning to adopt a school through the Bronx Museum of Art, but we're going to be the permanent artists in residence in a junior high school, which I hope is on Kelly Street in the South Bronx. We're going back
Oh, that's great.
to the very same school that we started on when I was 11 years old.
I want to thank all of you for meeting with me, and it's been great. I mean, this has been such an expansive afternoon for me, and I think that everyone who comes and sees the show is going to have a mind-altering experience. It's really great, and I think that you'll understand the depth of these works when you stand in front of them. It's incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bless us. Thank you.
Thank you.